Hi everyone, so we have a special guest with us today. Who's here? It's Pete the Cat. Because today we're going to read Pete the Cat Out of This World by James Dean. So Pete is going to take us on a trip to space camp. Put your hands on your head if you want to go to space camp with Pete. Are you excited to read this story? I am. So Pete's going to sit right here and he's going to help us read. So Pete the Cat Out of This World. It's a great day. Pete the Cat is going to space camp. Pete meets his bunkmate Glenn. As they unpack, there is an announcement. Welcome, space campers. Please head to the classroom. Your mission begins now. Time to suit up, says Pete. He and Glenn put on their uniforms and race to class. So what do you think they might learn about at space camp? Let's make a prediction. There are so many cool things to do and super neat stuff to see. Astronauts Tom and Chris talk about the trips they've taken, and they give a sneak peek at future space trips. It would be totally rad to go to space, says Pete. So here you see the sun and then Earth and Mars in their orbit. So Pete's learning the same things that we did. The campers find out what it feels like to be an astronaut. They go in the zero gravity chamber. Do we remember what gravity is? Gravity is what helps us stay standing on the ground. There's no gravity in space, so astronauts can float around. They ride in rovers. They even build rockets. Pete's rocket flies very, very far. Way to go, Pete, shouts Glenn. Next stop is Mission Control. We have some exciting news, says Tom. Our next flight leaves today. We're going to the moon, and we have room for more. Pete, do you want to go? Asks Sally. That would be awesome, says Pete. It's time to buckle up and settle into the space capsule. We're going to count backwards from 5. So we're going to start with 5 and count backwards to 1. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Awesome job. Liftoff. So remember, we learned that we have the rocket and the space shuttle. Their ship speeds through space. They blast past a satellite and even spot a comet. So a comet's something new. We didn't talk about that yet. This is a comet. Tom and Sally have a rockin' surprise for Pete. His guitar. He plays a groovy interstellar song for them. Mission Control listens in. So see how they're floating around? There's no gravity. In no time at all, they arrive on the moon. They are ready to explore. The astronauts collect rocks and map out the moon's surface. So remember when we talked about the surface of the moon? What are these big gray holes called? Do you remember that word we used? They're called craters. Can everyone say craters? Pete has a very important job to do. He straps on a jetpack and heads towards Mars. He takes tons of pictures. Oh no, Pete lost track of time and the moon is far, far away. He has to make it back to the ship before it blasts off. Phew! Pete made it back in the nick of time. The astronauts head home and there's time for a few more tunes. Pete sure knows how to make an entrance. Pete's trip to outer space was out of this world. Still, he's psyched to have his feet back on solid ground. Rocket on, Pete. Awesome. So, do you think Pete had a fun time at space camp? I think so. So when Pete went to space, he visited the moon, and then he went to Mars so he could take some pictures of Mars. So my question for you is, if you got to go to space camp and travel to space, what would you want to visit? Is there a planet you really want to go to? Or would you like to see the moon? Where would you want to go? Maybe you can leave it in the comments below, or even draw a picture of where you would want to go in space.